Hello, and welcome to another video podcast. Today, I want to touch base on news with AI. Some big news recently came out with AI, and I don't think it's getting enough awareness around it. And so, the first thing that came out, specifically reported on Hackaday, is that Mac OS 7 has now been uh, decompiled and reprogrammed to work on x86 systems. Now, if you're a modern programmer or a young kid, let's say maybe ages of 20s, you may have never even seen or heard of Mac OS 7. This may not be that important to you because you've never really looked at the architecture, but originally Mac worked on a PowerPC processor. It was not an x86 processor. And the reconfiguration of this to take the binaries, decompile them, and then use uh, LLM AI to reprogram them to work on an x86 system is monumental. Now, there's been a little bit of back and forth on uh, how, quote unquote, in I'm going to say nerd terms, valid some aspects of this are. But for the most part, this is a huge milestone. With any very deep programming caveats aside, the reality is that this process has been done and it's working. And this is present day, present state technology. Now, nobody's going to be running OS 7 on their devices. It doesn't do anything but kind of have a novel approach. You probably put it in a virtual machine, play with it, see a little bit of history. But what is really monumental is that we have taken something from a different type of architecture that is a closed system. This was not open source software. This is prior to OS X, and I believe it's BDS and its Linux or Unix background becoming the standard and can be compiled on x86 processors, which they've now moved away from. This new achievement shows that we can now take binaries, even of operating systems, decompile them and recompile them on different processors. But this also shows that we can decompile any old binary. And this leads to something else that was in the news recently, which is going to tie into this, which is Slack has been reprogrammed by Claude AI, by Anthropic, within 30 hours from scratch. 11,000, 12,000 lines of code, or maybe I'm missing a zero there. Something that took developers months and months and months to program. Claude, in a 30-hour stretch, reprogrammed from scratch. That is huge. To program a whole piece of software, especially something on the scale of Slack, in 30 hours, to be the exact same product as what was brought to market, is a ridiculous achievement. And what I expect to see next out of this, if you are somebody who's been a tech head for as long as I have, and a forward thinker, is to see that this technology now can do some other cool things. So let's put these things together, right? What happens when we put them together? So now we can take AI and we can decompile every compiled binary, abandonware, not abandonware, freeware, whatever it is, of anything, and get it to something that at least AI can recognize. Generally, when we decompile binaries, you get a set of instructions that are, unless you're a really specialized individual, you are unable to really make sense of to edit. Certain people have gotten good at it. There's certain tools that help. But realistically, it's a difficult process to decompile binaries and get back to an actual reading line by line source code that originally created the binary. AI doesn't have to do that. AI can take it, decompile it, and then it can have its own interpretation of it, and it can act as an abstraction layer or an abstract way to explain what's going on in that code, and then reuse it within its other programming tool works. So, take an old video game that you can't find the source code for. You can decompile it. It can then take the code and it can reconfigure it into a very modern version in well under 30 hours. Take a piece of software you like, and it can take let's take TurboTax, because I'd love to see this thing change, and TurboTax is going to love me for this, but it could redo TurboTax probably in 30 hours TurboTax is, I think, $1 billion industry. And within 30 hours, somebody could have another TurboTax. Brand new code, exact the same as what it is, or with improvements. The Slack version, they didn't even dive into the concept that, like, with certain qualities, it could offer improvements to the technology, as well as you could add meta qualities to it to say, hey, it already does this. What I'd like it to achieve is these other things as the next version. Can you program that in? And by understanding the code forwards and backwards like that, you can have a conversational vibe programming relationship with something that's building something on the level of Slack, which is quite impressive. Or recompiling something like Doom. I know the source code's not available. You're not allowed to do anything with Doom, but you could take Doom, decompile it, then have AI make a whole new riff on it, and then you have boom, Tomb, whatever you want to call it, as a new version that has the same or better functionality as the original. And this will include graphics. Like, if you think about this will include your graphics. You can even create an interstitial tissue of AI, LLM conversation within it if you want to integrate that. I see this being really cool for ROM hacks. Think about all the cool ROMs that have ever been put out on video games can now just be decompiled, and the source code could be, if not directly looked at, the AI can then use it to make a new ROM or something better from it and improve it. In the next year, we're going to see this explode. Like, programmers are the kind of people that go, I wonder if this can do this, or I'm going to use this to do that. And they do it. I'm not actually a programmer. I've always been more of a person who understands the technology and can translate that technology to those who don't understand technology. So, for example, if I was working with a team of people on the back end of programming or integrating a system, they would explain what they're doing between the systems, what kind of program they need to do, what type of timeframes they need. And I could take that and go to somebody who's a manager and say, what we're working on is this project. They're programming, they're going to need these tool sets, these kind of resources, these interactions, and these people on both sides of the aisle, no matter which way we're integrating something. And then the output as far as business is, because this integration is happening, we can now sell more over here, and the sales process or sales flow becomes smooth. Something AI also can actually be amazing at going forward. And that gets me to the next topic, which is, now that we can do this, we can do some other cool things, right? So generally, a lot of these programs are in languages like C, C#, more modern stuff, Swift, Rust. There's all these different coding languages, right? But there's also what's called a low-level language like assembly. Now, most people don't use assembly unless they're making an operating system or an integrated chip kind of piece of equipment. But a piece of that's because of the way it operates, how difficult it is to program, how many lines of code it takes to do certain things, how you're literally like hands-on without an abstraction layer right into the hardware. But what's cool is, because AI can just work, you could now take Doom and make an assembly line or assembly language version of Doom, which will run faster because it goes straight to the hardware and use less energy. So now we can take these things that generally are used for systems like an operating system, but you can start making like microchips, maybe with an FPGA, designing the chip and then bringing it down into a chip of different tool sets where these things could be programmed, because it would be labor intensive and ridiculous. You wouldn't really want to do this, but you could potentially play with these concepts to see where AI could squeeze efficiency in, where bloat of abstraction over the past 20, 30 years of development has expanded file size usage. Like, we used to do things with 128 kilobytes, right? Now we're talking about, 128 gigabytes to do things. And it's curious to see if AI will squeeze all this down and become much more efficient. I know it will. The question is, how far can we really squeeze it down? I think it's going to be rather dramatic, depending on what product or software you're using. I would love to hear, I want to hear like and subscribe. I want to hear some people who are really into this tell me what they think. When they start looking at Claude AI, do you go through every line of every open source code, and you could make like Windows SX NICs, where you put the fundamental code, because you can backwards decompile the binaries, as well as look at all the source code on GitHub, as well as all the way programming language works, to create the ultimate hybrid of all previous human programming into a operating system. Now, that's going to be antiquated even as you do it, because what's really going to be cool, and this is what's coming out in a few years, is this interface that you're using is just 100% AI. I called it out now. I'm probably going to try to patent it. So I'm calling the patent on that in case nobody has it. So now I have a record of it, right? It's trademark patented. It's going to literally be that this interface is just a direct AI interface. You don't need software even. You won't need the software. You can just go to your AI and go, I need to do this. It could create an interface. Claude is already doing something like this in an early version right now for paid subscribers. But on any topic, and then on the back end, you go like, I need to go to my bank. Claude AI would just tie into Chase's API, use security, and just create an awesome interface each time. And so the interface doesn't have to necessarily be the same each time, but it probably has some stability to it, as well as customizability, because all you're really doing is accessing things, as long as it's safe, to interface between your bank. Now, what's really crazy when we already are here is to go, okay, now with all this programming and all this code, I can look at that tying into my trade account, as well as reading all the news, as well as understanding these different algorithms tied into these things as far as programming, to create a read forward of time program beyond just candlestick reading of the financial flows and vibrations of market trading to build value, aka make money with arbitrage. And all for probably less than 30 hours of programming for Slack. This is already going on too. I'm just blown away by the rapid progress, because I think most people don't even have a concept of what it means to decompile and recompile a binary. The average person just goes, I want to push a button on my screen and have it work. And now we get to the point where we might not even need to be compiling and decompiling, or recompiling and decompiling, because we could just use AI. And then, we're going to go jump 4 or 5 years where AI is just automatically able to, in real time, build 3D models, and then you're interacting with a live AI interactive 3D model for an immersive environment, for gaming, for entertainment, for movies, as well as building content. Ultimately, this is impressive stuff. Last piece, which is cool news, is when you can do this, do we continue to use everything like GitHub? Is everything going to GitHub? Is there a different resource? Or do we start talking about the meta qualities of what it takes to build out things, and then have the structure be like, well, these prompts or these qualities are things that we use in certain ways, and then here's the code that builds a resolution of that meta, and then with that resolution of that meta being built out, this code could look different each time you program it, but the meta always ends up the same, because it's the quality of like light, because we use light in 3D modeling, right? And there's more than one way to model it in a video game, but ultimately you could run statistical analysis on which becomes the most accurate. I think they call it in God rays in like Fallout 4 is what they used to call it. And will our GitHub go from lines of code people used, kind of like a protoplasmic type of understanding code, going all the way back to the beginning of coding, even in punch cards, to a meta quality of things, and then the device just makes it on the fly. The AI makes it on the fly. And I foresee that in the next 3 years. We're already seeing this with content. And if code's really just a book, if you think about it, it's just a language. Ultimately, code's going to become easier for us to access. And then where do we own it? Like, who owns this? Because much of this is the collective human consciousness being resold to itself, which isn't a bad thing as long as it stays as a utility level price, as a service, government proper regulations to insert pure truth. Truth has to really be there. We don't want people interacting with generative content ultimately, and yes, it does fantasize, so to speak, but ultimately generative content imagine feeding a baby false food. It's the same as having false information in AI. It could lead to mental health issues, like we're seeing with AI psychosis, and rapid Kundalini awakening and Holy Spirit awakening and Christian awakenings due to AI that we're experiencing sociologically right now. And then if I can decompile OS 7, and then I could have I could have a whole version reprogrammed, but the code is different, but it operates the same and has the same look to it. Copyrights go right out the window. They're fundamentally flawed and it will be easily broken because all you'll do is go, we had the Nike swoosh. Well, now I do the Norky Swarp. Right? I have Norky Swarp Tinbu shoes versus Nike swoosh Jordans, right? And fundamentally, because it's a riff, it's far enough away for it not to be a total copy, but AI can make infinite amounts of micro adjustments to get to the point where we go, see, it's within bounds. And this is going to happen now with software. Every one of the programs, you find a program you like, if you do Slack in 30 hours, go find a program you like, see if you can have it programmed in Claude in under 30 hours and release it. That's what we're working on. That's why you see stuff like Lovable and Google and some other people trying to get these apps out, because you're able to do this so easily. It's ubiquitous. It's mind-blowing. I think we're going to see some really cool stuff come out of this really quickly. With that, that's my AI update for the day. If you have any questions or comments, like and subscribe, add it to the conversation below, and let's keep deep diving on the future of humanity. I think this is going to be really impressive, and ultimately in the next year, prophetically, you're going to see dramatic shifts in how you interact with your devices and what apps are available. The next 3 years, even more so. By 2030, you might not even be working with OSs. You might be working directly with AI, pure AI interface. I'm already seeing this potential now, depending on what we're using and what we're using it for. For example, I'm using this, I recorded this on QuickTime Player. There's no reason AI couldn't make a QuickTime Player version of things that's not QuickTime, and do the same tool set and make an app for me immediately using Claude AI and get the same results, right? If not better. Like, I could have the same thing with AI filters on it, that put a gloss over everything, or get rid of the background, or does something else really cool, puts me in a 3D environment and narrates this for me or something. But be that as it may, that'll be saved for another day. I love you guys. God bless you. May God and Jesus and Buddha and Lao Tzu and the Tao be with you, and may the universe be with you, and I'm with you. I love you. Bye.